Sky Sports. It's live. Live it.
The track is only 7/10 of a mile round. That's just 16 seconds a lap. And with 22 cars, it's going to be action all the way. We're under lights at a track they call the Richmond International Raceway. It's the SunTrust Indy Challenge. Good morning. Tonight we're back to racing under floodlights at a track which is always extremely difficult and can spring plenty of surprises. This is round 7 of the 16 races of the Indy Racing League, and we've already had 5 different winners. But the only double winner so far, New Zealand's Scott Dixon, will start on tonight's pole. So let's check out the headlines. Chevy engines are back at the front as Sarah Fisher qualifies on the front row, while Sam Hornish will start 3rd on the grid. Tora Takagi will start at the back of the grid after qualifying 3rd, but then crashing. He'll drive the Monum backup car. And Scotland's Dario Franchitti is now out of racing for the rest of the season due to his back problems. Well, we're expecting an early start tonight, so there's not much time for discussion before the race starts. So let me introduce my guests. Paul Cherry is our regular expert, and he's joined by someone we haven't seen for a while here on Sky. It's good to welcome back a director of the Motorsport Industry Association, John Kirkpatrick. John, this track, 7/10 of a mile round, 16-second laps. It's going to be a bit hectic out there for the drivers, isn't it?
Short and bumpy, but wide enough to still do a lap at 165 miles an hour. Always changing direction, lots of ducking and diving, so yeah, they're going to be busy.
A few yellows you're expecting?
I suspect.
Indeed. Now then, the big story for me tonight, Sarah Fisher, 2nd row of the grid. Chevy engines going particularly well. I should say she's on the front row of the grid, and Sam Hornish is on the 2nd row of the grid. Chevrolet, they're running the old motors. Why are they going so well at this track?
7/10 of a mile, Keith. It's not a big track, so it's more about the setup of the car. If you look at the grid down to 10th place, 7 of those runners are existing teams that have done the IRL a lot, have been here, have got good database. As we've said before, data's everything.
They must be looking forward to the new motors. You predicted, I think, here, or exclusively revealed here, that Cosworth are providing them with them next year.
Yes, they have. Well, that providing them's one way of putting it. They ran a test at Chicagoland last week, and the Cosworth engine, it has not been badged yet, was actually 5 mile an hour quicker per lap.
Plenty to come then from Chevy. Well, as we've already mentioned, Tora Takagi crashed during the build-up to the race, but he wasn't the only one. We can cross now to our commentators in America, Gary Lee and Larry Rice, to catch up with an incident-packed practice.
First was Sarah Fisher. This was after qualifying the last practice session last night. Sarah will start outside the front row. There's Robbie Buell, her teammate.
Coming off the 2nd corner in almost identical same place. Neither one of those cars damaged really badly. There's the one that hurt. Tora Takagi off of turn number 4.
So he has to go with the backup car for this evening, and this is Hornish.
And he too hit very lightly, and he repaired that car and gets to start in his original starting position.
There it is then, the point standings after 6 of the 16 races. Tony Kanaan has a 49-point lead over Scott Dixon, who has a 1-point lead over Alan Sir Jr., Gilles de Ferran and Helio Castroneves, de Ferran's teammate, of course. Kenny Brack is there, just 6 points further back than those 3. So that's your top 6 in the series at this particular point. Let's take a look now at how they line up tonight.
Scott Dixon, car number 9.
Sarah Fisher, car number 23.
Takagi, car number 12.
Sam Hornish Jr., car number 4.
Tony Kanaan, car number 11.
Greg Ray, car number 13.
Gilles de Ferran, car number 6.
Philippe Jaffoni, car number 21.
Brian Herta, car number 27.
Vitor Mira, car number 2.
Helio Castroneves, car number 3.
Dan Weldon, car number 26.
Buddy Rice, car number 52.
Thomas Schechter, car number 10.
Kenny Brack, car number 15.
Robbie Buell, car 24.
Alan Sir Jr., car number 31.
Scott Sharp, car number 8.
Roger Yasukawa, number 55.
Jacques Lazier, car number 5.
Buddy Lazier, car number 91.
AJ 44, car number 14.
That's how they line up then, and we are going racing in just a little while. Then Scott Dixon, the New Zealander, that's his first ever pole position, as far as my records have it anyway, in IRL. So Scott Dixon making last week's win count as far as this is concerned. Let's cross now to the track live.
There's a look from Scott Sharp's car. In fact, he was leading the point standings going into Indianapolis, but has fallen to 6th now in the points. And there's a look at Scott Dixon. Nothing but open racetrack in front of him because he starts from the pole position with 2 wins this season. There's a look at Tony Kanaan with a very different paint job, recognizing that Hulk the movie that's the rage in this country now. There is Greg Ray, a good qualifying effort for Greg. He'll be starting in the 5th position.
Yeah, I think Greg Ray is very happy with this. This is the best one he's had for a long time.
Kenny Breck not so happy with his qualifying effort. He'll start back in the 14th position for the Ray Hall Dave Letterman team. So once again, a youngster, Scott Dixon, at the age of 22, shares a birthday, an October 4th birthday, with Sarah Fisher. They start side by side in the front row. The 2nd and 3rd youngest drivers in the race. AJ Foyt, the 4th, at the age of 19, is the youngest. And there is the green flag. 250 laps in what we in this country call just a bull ring. And not a very good start for Sarah. She drops back to 3rd right away. These drivers taking a very, very high groove around this racetrack.
And you can see the horsepower disadvantage even under these conditions for Sarah Fisher and Sam Hornish, as neither one of them got a very good run off that original start. Horsepower on the starts and restarts are going to be a problem for them once they get going, once they get in their groove. Look at Sam Hornish. Already he's moved up to that high side. Oh!
He almost gets together with Sarah. Down the backstretch, does not give her much room, or she doesn't give him much room. Look at this.
Man, oh man, that you don't get any closer than that. Somebody went by her on the inside.
3 wide.
While he was on the outside.
That looks to be Thomas Schechter in the number 10 car, and there goes Hornish. We saw how competitive he was last week using that high groove, but this realistically might be his best shot overall to win this season with that underpowered Chevrolet.
Yeah, and you've got to be on your toes every inch of the way around this racetrack. It is so demanding, very, very demanding all the way, very physical, and you've really got to be on top of things.
Schechter is up to 6th position already. He qualified in 13th, so he has moved up some 7 positions already, and he set sail for Hornish. You're right along with Hornish right now. Hornish tucked in behind Greg Ray in that number 13 car. Ray is back in 4th. Hornish is 5th.
And Hornish, once he kind of got his legs under him, once he got things going, he's been able to run with these Toyotas and Hondas with the first couple of laps. And even on this straightaway, you saw right there, Greg Ray just pulled away from him going down the straightaway. So if he makes just a slight mistake through the corners, it costs him big time down the straightaway.
We saw Brecken Unser also picked up some 6 positions from their starting spot. Al Unser Jr., the oldest driver in the race at the age of 41, started back in the 16th position. Not qualified all of them yesterday.
Greg Ray following Gilles de Ferran. Here we ride along with Greg Ray, and he's been actually gaining on Gilles de Ferran here the last couple of laps. So he's having a great run here in the early going. De Ferran started back in 6th place and has moved to 3rd right off the very start of the race.
This track has been around since the 1940s. It was built as a half-mile dirt oval at the fairgrounds. There's a donut, a tire donut on the side of number 13. That would be Greg Ray. And that may be from Sarah Fisher's number 23. Some very tight racing early on out here. And that's the way we're going to have it this entire race, because there just is not a lot of room in this racetrack.
No, there is absolutely no room. There's no room for error. So when those guys are racing side by side, it's very difficult. I think he was the one going by on the inside of Sarah Fisher at exactly the same time Sam Hornish was trying to go around her on the outside.
It's also mentioned, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Sam Hornish was going to test that Chevy Cosworth engine. Test did not go all that well at both Chicagoland Speedway and also at Indianapolis. They had some electrical problems, so there is some question as to whether there will be some relief for Chevrolet anytime this season.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough year for Chevrolet, I think, and this probably is their best shot on this little short track. Now we're taking a look at Brian Herta. Dario Fanchitti has opted to have an operation on his back. He is out for the remainder of the year, and Brian Herta will be in this number 27 car for the remainder of the year.
Keep in mind, it was Franchitti who broke his back in a motorcycle accident on his way to the Japan race. He was actually stopping off in Scotland to visit relatives and actually fell off his motorcycle, broke his back, missed 3 races, came back, ran a couple of weeks ago, then opted to have surgery, and will be out, as you said, Larry, for the rest of the season.
And it wasn't something that was wrong with his back. He and the doctor just felt for the long-term health prospects, it was better to do it now than wait till the end of the year. If we take a look at Scott Dixon, who's opened up a pretty good-sized lead, about a 1-second lead over Tony Kanaan.
Doesn't sound like much, but on this size of track, that's a pretty sizable lead. And of course, you're going to be in traffic throughout this entire race, so handling is a premium on this racetrack. And
he's been fast since he unloaded. He was fast. He was fast in the first practice session. He was fast in the last practice session. He was the fastest qualifier.
Here you're looking at 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You're riding with 4th right now, and that is Greg Ray, by far his best qualifying effort of the year. That's a full-time sponsor, that Trim Spa, that came along before Indianapolis, and this is a team that is a low-budget team, a very small team, but they're showing great progress.
Yes, they are, and he's right behind DeFerrin, running just about exactly the same speed. Hasn't been able to gain a lot on him. But this is a very physical racetrack. These guys right now are thinking about maybe, as long as they're running with the leaders, they don't have to try to challenge them right away.
Well, Dixon's lead has increased slightly by about a 1/10 of a second. Now a couple of 1/10ths of a second in the past 2 laps as he leads Tony Kanaan. Kanaan with a phenomenal season so far, leading the point standings and having won at least once event. You know, consistency, Larry Rice, will win you championships, and Tony Kanaan has certainly been consistent this season.
Well, yeah, he's been very consistent. He's only finished out of the top 4, I think, 1 time in all the races so far this year. And if he continues that kind of a streak, he's going to be very, very difficult to beat in the point standings. You know, consistency is everything.
He finished 4th at Miami. He won Phoenix. His worst finish was a 14th in Japan. Then he had a 3rd, a 2nd, and a 2nd. And if you're consistent like that, and you're finishing 2nd or 3rd every time out, you don't really win races to win a championship.
We're riding along here with Sam Hornish as he follows DeFerrin and Greg Ray. And you can see that he turns the wheel quite a ways in the corner. There's more steering in this track than there is almost any place else. He's almost up at 12 o'clock going through the corner with that right hand.
In fact, the first time Scott Dixon, who leads this thing, saw this racetrack, he thought it was a kart track, and he was looking for the racetrack, and he was informed, no, this is the racetrack.
Yeah, they're already in lap traffic. DeFerrin had to get out of the throttle. So did Greg Ray. And look at Sam Hornish. He almost stuck his nose under there, but he had to get out of the throttle too.
And he goes by Buddy Lazier, who won this race 2 years ago, and Buddy looks to be in some problem because he's falling back rapidly. He got a pit fire last season, was victorious here 2 years ago.
Yeah, and Schechter just lost a spot in that little skirmish while they were battling there as Castroneves went around him.
You see as the sun starts to set here in the eastern portion of the United States, this track takes on a different appearance under the lights at night as you ride along with Ray back there in the 4th position. Live coverage from Richmond International Raceway. It started out as a dirt half-mile oval back in the 40s, and it was paved back in the 60s.
And it was a 1-mile track, or I mean, a half-mile track during that period, and then they changed it to a 3/4-mile track just not too long ago, and it's become one of the favorites of these guys, even though it is so small.
This is a workout. This is a physically demanding racetrack. You have to have the car set up. It has to be spot on. And these drivers, in fact, a couple of years ago when Buddy Lazier won, he lost 8 pounds of body weight during the race.
Yeah, and it's just so demanding. And that's Sarah Fisher we're taking a look at there.
She's a lap off the pace already, back in 21st position.
Whatever they did, whatever they changed after qualifying, they certainly missed the setup.
Well, they put the car back together after that wreck, and she has a totally different race car from what she qualified.
Yeah, and evidently it's not handling because she is really, really off the pace.
And she's trying to stay out of the way as you saw Greg Ray go by. And right behind Ray is Castroneves, who's gotten around Hornish. So Hornish drops back to 6th. So Castroneves has picked up a couple of spots in the last 3 laps.
Yeah. As you see, Sarah's she's traveling along there, but it looks like the car is pushing. She gets very wide coming off the corners, and that's not a good thing here at this little racetrack.
Well, Dixon continues to lead. He has led from the opening green. Kanan now is in 2nd. Farron is 3rd. Then Ray, Castroneves, Hornish, Schechter, Breck. Unser has moved all the way to 9th. Al qualified in 16th position, so he has picked up 7 spots. Schechter is riding 7th, and Schechter started this race in 13th. So those are 2 drivers on the move early in this 250-lap event.
And you're talking about how physical and how they lost weight. Some of the guys here, it is so physical. I mean, you're just turning all the time. Your arms are always in a strain. Your neck is always in a strain. This is the only straight place on the racetrack, and this only lasts for like 3/4 of a second down the back straightaway. The rest of this entire lap, you are under turn. This straightaway, well, you can see,
no
not
straightaway
exactly
at all.
a straightaway. You're always turning. So it's a very, very physically demanding for each and every one of these guys.
You figure in qualifying yesterday, Scott Dixon turned in a lap of 168 miles an hour on a track that is less than a kilometer.
Yeah, 3/4 of a mile. Very, very small, very short racetrack. And, you know, you're always close to somebody. That's the other thing. Ooh, you can see right there, Scott
Sharp just got passed by Foyt. Sharp is lingering near the back of the pack in 18th position.
And here comes a move.
Sharp now has been dropped to 20th, and he's a lap off the pace. AJ is the last car on the lead lap in 19th position. And there's that new paint job on Tony Kanan's number 11.
And
hear the throttle. Listen to the throttle, Larry.
And the throttle is very important here. You can break these cars loose. If you get on the throttle a little too hot, especially coming off a 2.
Look at this. Look at this. There's a battle for position. That's a battle for 5th.
And Sam Hornish better through the, oh, look at that.
He comes up on him and almost got the right rear.
He gains on him so much through the corners, but in the straightaways, you can see, even on this short track, Castroneves pulls away from him by about a car length. Oh, look at this. Castroneves is going to have to give him room.
This is for position. Nope, didn't do it.
Boy, he really is coming off the corners great. Getting into the corners, he's not getting in quite as hard as Castroneves is.
Now, one of the key players in the last 2 championship seasons for Hornish, Kevin Blanche, will leave the team, we believe, after next week's race at Kansas. And he is actually joining the Indy Racing League as a tech man. Oh, he's pushing almost to the wall. That's exactly what happened in that practice station yesterday when he hit the wall.
He got up there in the marbles and almost lost it. He lost about 3 or 4 spots there trying to get around Castroneves. He just got up in the loose marbles and almost spun that thing. Did a terrific job to stay just on the racetrack.
Well, Schechter got by him. Kenny Breck got by him. Breck is up to 7th.
Yeah, Unser Jr. got by him, so
he started the race in 14, so Kenny's got a good ride going.
He lost at least 3 spots during that little miscue.
Now, Laurie, for a driver, it's very important for him not to lose his rhythm, not to get angry with himself, get frustrated. Look at this.
There comes the Farron.
Oh, there goes Castroneves on the high side.
All that because of the traffic. As you can see, Castroneves now on the outside, and he goes by Kanan as we're in that traffic. Kanan just got out of the throttle for a very short time, and Farron went by on the inside, Castroneves on the outside.
And he dropped from 2nd to 4th just like that.
Wow. Look at Scott Sharp. He has just really missed the mark.
Well, he's languishing back there right now. He's a lap off the pace, back in 20th spot. It's going to be a long evening for Mr. Sharp.
And Greg Ray's hanging right in there, right behind Kanan, but he cannot, he just can't get around anybody. He's followed him. He's running as fast as they have. But right now, the 2 Penske cars, the guys are on the move.
Look at Hornish again.
Uh-oh, he's up behind Scott.
That's Scott Sharp out in front of him. Where's he going to go? He dives to the inside. Does Scott see him? And there's Schechter right behind him. So he's gotten around Schechter. He's picked up the 2 spots that he lost to Schechter and Breck when he almost hit the wall.
Wow.
This guy is worth the price of admission just to watch him alone.
He has done such a terrific job with, quite honestly, such a terribly under-horsepowered race car. It's just unbelievable.
There's a look at Scott Dixon. He continues to lead as he completes lap 45. He has led from the start. DeFerrin now is second. The Penske teammates are running in the second and third. Kanaan is back and forth, and it's Ray, Hornish, Schechter, and Kenny Brack, with Unser and Herta rounding out the top 10.
About being the trickiest place on the racetrack. Appears to be where he got into the wall, and you can see he just pancaked the right-hand side of the car and tore both right side wheels off, it appears.
Vito Mira and Brian Herta were the two drivers that had never seen this racetrack before they arrived this weekend. Let's take a look at this again, Larry.
They're just coming off turn number 2. He just pushed
super high. He just pushed up in the marbles.
Wow, he was really, he got way out of the groove, got up there in the marbles, absolutely couldn't turn it.
Had a chance to visit with him on Tuesday in Indianapolis. He now lives in Indianapolis, and actually he comes out before the race to a kart track, Whiteman Raceway Park, just south of Indianapolis, to stay sharp on the shifter kart. And said he'd never been at this racetrack before and was eagerly awaiting the chance to race it. And this is what happened. Wow, there goes the television camera.
Yeah, he was too high, got up in the marbles coming off, and really just slammed the fence coming off of turn 2. Hit it, I thought he kind of pancaked it, but he didn't. He hit it with the right front a ton, and you can see the parts all over that racetrack.
Well, you see that Johnny Rutherford has that yellow pace car that Corvette out in front, the 50th anniversary year of the Chevrolet Corvette. And we're hearing that Castro-Neves, who is now in 4th position, may have hit some debris on the racetrack. So we will watch to see if he has called the attention of the captain and the pit crew. Our first yellow of the evening.
Well, the big danger by hitting something with out there on the racetrack is you might tear up some of the aerodynamics on the race car. If he didn't do that or tear up some of the suspension is not very sturdy. I mean, if you run over a half shaft or something that's laying on the racetrack, a very heavy piece of metal, it can actually bend the steering just by running over it and knocking it up.
Or if you saw the videotape of Mario Andretti, that practice crash at Indianapolis back in April, it can send you flying.
Yes, yes it can.
We're hearing now from the pit area that the leader will be coming in the next time around. So this is very early for a pit stop.
They're all probably going to pit here because they don't know when the next yellow will be. If they can, they're all, even though they can make it on one pit stop, everybody is planning on at least 2 pit stops because the tires, because of the yellows and because the tires are going to be such a factor. A worn out tire, if you run a tire 100 laps, it's going to be absolutely junk. So they're going to take advantage of this to come in and take on new tires, and then if they can go to lap 150 or 140 or whatever to the next pit stop, then anything is up. But they will all come in right now as soon as the pits are open. You can see that flag that was waving back there. That meant the pits were still closed, as all of the safety workers are back there cleaning up the pieces along the back straightaway.
59 laps are now complete under yellow. Tony Kanaan.
He's fallen back a little bit here in the last few laps. He'll be one of the guys that'll want to come in. The other thing that's happened on this racetrack, the sun has gone down. We started when the sun was up, the sun has gone down. This racetrack will change drastically when it cools off just a little bit. And I think that's what you're seeing with some of these guys and probably with Kanaan.
Greg Ray back in 6th position. That's what they talk about, chasing the race car, because the chassis, the handling will change as track conditions change, and it's up to the driver to make adjustments that he can in the cockpit or the adjustments on the wing and the stagger in the pit area.
You're going to see all these guys heading for the pit area this time. The pits are open. Everybody's going to probably duck in there. Looks like one car stayed on the racetrack. I'm not sure who that is, but all the leaders are going to come in for sure.
There is the Hornish Panther team.
Kevin Blanche, leaving the team, is the guy on the right front. He's the guy waving for him to go. He's in control of that pit stop. The guy on the right front is always in control. Uh-oh.
Well, a problem with 4 and 21. Giafoni in the 21 car. Hornish actually got together in the pit area. Now he's going to lose some spots. It could have been much worse than it happened under green. let's take a look at what happened between Giafone and Sam Hornish as Sam was ready to leave the pit area.
Well, you can see it
waved away.
They're moving him out.
Here comes Giafone.
Giafone heads down across the racetrack.
And that can be some significant contact right there.
Yeah, he's going to be lucky if he didn't bend something in the right front corner of that car.
Well, Giafone got out.
The lucky thing is he kept the engine running, and as soon as Giafone got out of his way, he just took off and kept going. If he'd have killed the engine, that would have been a huge disaster. He'd have probably lost a lap. Well, now it'll be interesting because he's going to be way in the back. He's going to have to fight his way back up through there, and I'm sure
he's probably pretty hot right now.
Yeah.
Under the collar or in the cockpit or whatever, but that'll make for an interesting race coming up as we go back to green here in Richmond.
Well, you might be amazed that we've only had one yellow after the kind of incidents we've seen out on the track today. Still with me, Paul Cherry and John Kirkpatrick, of course. I've got to say that your prediction at the front was absolutely bang on dead right. 16-second laps. I've got to say, Sam Hornish, for me, is living on borrowed time.
He's always there, isn't he? He's always trying to thread the eye of a needle, always up against the wall. And you know, he was lucky to get away with it earlier on, but...
well, the man who didn't get away with it, of course, was Vita Mira, and we can take a look now, and perhaps you can talk us through what happened here, John, if you would, please.
Yeah, I think Helio Castroneves just came up inside him and pushed him up wide, and he got on the marbles, and that was the end of his day. Clearly easily done on a track like this.
Paul, you've been around racing a long time, but this track really has got to be the tightest thing you've ever looked at, I'm sure. Yeah,
I think that save we saw from Hornish earlier on in the race is about the only one you're ever going to see here. It's such a punishing place. As John said earlier, it's bumpy.
What happened there? I mean, he took the inside line from him. Is it really that slippery off the line?
Yeah. This far into the race, the marbles are already there. And these cars, once they get on them, they slip just straight away. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, we talked about Sam Hornish living dangerously. That was at sort of 170 odd miles an hour. Let's take a quick look now at what happened to him in pit lane. I mean, remarkable circumstances here, Paul. Talk us through this.
Well, unfortunately, yet again, we've seen where the control guy, which is the front right, is sending somebody out and not really looking at the traffic. And Giafone there is completely blindsided, and obviously Sam just clipped him. Hopefully there's no suspension damage. He's gone out, we saw him twisting the wheel a bit, but be interesting at 160 mile an hour how it's like.
Well, that, of course, is the first that Sam Hornish Jr. is going to get a chance to find out whether that car works, is when we come under green flag. These are live pictures. Let's cross back to the track then. Live commentators at trackside.
Remaining under yellow as they go down the backstretch here at Richmond. And you're riding with Sam Hornish. You see that some of the safety crew members are still there at the crash scene. All the leaders stopped under yellow. Consequently, Scott Dixon got in and got out, and he retains the lead. Not often you see that happen in an IndyCar race, but it happened here this evening. So he has led now all 66 laps. Remember, Larry, there are 2 bonus laps for leading the most, or 2 bonus points for leading the most laps in a race.
Yeah, usually somebody will stay out there to try to lead a couple of laps, and everybody on this shorter racetrack, you have to pit when they have a chance.
We're going to try to hear from John Barnes.
Well, as you can see, Sam Hornish finding his way out there, and I can tell you Vita Mira was taken off of his line by Dan Weldon, the British driver, of course. We've been able to identify that now. As you can see, everybody clearing off out of pit lane. We'll get a chance now to take a short break. We'll be back with live racing from Richmond in just a few moments. Our first yellow of the day at Richmond, and as you can see, Thomas Scheckter finding himself in a little bit of trouble, and this is on the behind the pace car lap. So Al Unser Jr. getting a little bit of wing damage there after Scheckter almost turned it sideways on. Now these are live pictures, and that looks like a major panic going on there in pit lane. Paul Cherry here sitting with me. What's all that about then on Scott Dixon's car?
That's a severe dose of adrenaline. The new nose has been fitted, and I think there's a little bit of a discussion about what settings to put on it, Keith. Sometimes people get a bit excited, as you can see.
Well, Well, there's still a vehicle up on the banking, so we're not going to be coming under green for a moment or two just yet. So there's an opportunity to sort these vehicles out. And in comes, in fact, out goes Dixon. Hell of a lot going on at the moment, John.
Just a bit. Yeah, I think you know, the Scheckter spin. He was sort of pushed down by Kanaan, and then spun and then collected Unser, or Unser collected him.
Okay. Paul?
Sorry, just to butt in there, Keith.
No,
but
carry on.
It appears that what Ganassis are doing is trying to keep him on the lead lap, sending him through until they can get this wing sorted out.
And just to recap, of course, Vita Mira, we actually misidentified Helio Castroneves, or rather the commentators did, underneath Vita Mira, taking his line, and that's what caused Vita Mira up into the marbly bits. It was actually Dan Weldon on better identification from here in the studio. Paul Cherry, were you a little bit surprised at that? I mean, he's 5th at the minute, so Dan Weldon's actually having a good... He started 11th, and he's actually 6th according to that at the moment after the sort out in pit lane, but he's having a good drive, isn't he, young Dan?
He's having an excellent drive, and the opportunity was there to sneak through, and he did, and Vita should have realised that the marbles were in the position he was.
Well, he's well and truly the highest placed rookie out there at the moment, of course, from Emberton, near Olney in Buckinghamshire in England, of course, just up the road from where I live. I wonder if he goes to the Olney wine bar, but we won't even go there, will we? We're looking at Scott Dixon. Now, there is definitely a problem... sorry, Thomas Scheckter. There's a definite problem going on here with Scheckter. That's obviously after he spun it, got hooked up with Unser. They're really having a major nose job here, aren't they?
Well, I think somebody's thought about it a bit more than the tantrum from the last time round, and what they're clearly trying to do is get it off so that they can put the new one on. In the process, they've sent him out twice now to keep him on the lead lap, but this is definitely going to drop him a lap or two, even under yellow.
Definitely a major problem here for Thomas Scheckter, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to get that off of there either. So Thomas Scheckter is sent out yet again to stay on the lead lap, and we might well be... Actually, I don't think we're coming under green just yet. So then, as Thomas Scheckter finds his way back out onto the racetrack, are his problems over? That's the question. Let's cross back to the track then, live, with our trackside commentators.
So a lot of action under this yellow. There is Al Unser Jr. back on the racetrack after the Kelly team replaced the front wing, but it was not such an easy operation for the target team Ganassi.
No, you know, Al Unser's crew got that wing on and off very quickly. It looked like it was a very routine job. On the other hand, evidently, Thomas Scheckter has bent some of the understructure in the car because he's not been able to get that wing off and the new one back on like they wanted to be. Now he's back in the pits again, and they're going to get the green next time by, so if they don't get it fixed, he's going to be in a world of hurt.
Well, he's going to come out of the pit area. They're going to be coming up to full song.
Yep.
Scheckter apparently will get back out and stay on the lead lap as his teammate brings them around for the restart. Complete 78 laps this time by. 250 laps the scheduled distance here in this very small racetrack. Right away, look at the Farron.
The Farron tried to find a way around. That's A.J. Foyt in the 3rd position there. He's a lap car. Castroneves getting around him.
We're going to try to hear from Vito Mira, who crashed and created that first yellow this evening. There's Greg Ray back there in the 5th position.
Tony Kanaan right in front of him. The car in front of Kanaan is A.J. Foyt the 4th, the lap car.
Off.
So those guys trying to get around Foyt so they get back up there in the battle with the leaders. Greg Ray has done an impressive job here tonight. He's run with the leaders. We haven't seen him passing very many guys. He doesn't have to pass anybody at this point.
If you qualify well, which he did.
Right. You run with them and you hang around to the last 50 laps, then you can try to pass guys. He's run a very, very smart race, in my opinion, up to this point.
That's all from practice speeds and qualifying well to be in a position to do that. If you're qualifying at the back of the pack, you have to use the race car. I'm just trying to get
to what created your problem? Well, it was pretty early in the race. I mean, on this 54 laps, more or less. And I was trying to overtake the car in front of me. Had a couple of runs, but never finished the movement. And, well, a car behind, which was Daniel Weldon, put it inside me, kind of slided a little bit, came too hard. I went to the Marlboros and spun. That was about it.
Glad you're all right. Thank you.
Just, Larry, as you had called it, just got high, and then once you get, explain again the marbles, because once you hit what they call the marbles, there's nothing to do with just slam the wall.
Yeah, this racetrack is only 2 grooves wide. Right there, Sam Hornish is out in that second groove, and that's all the higher you can get. What happens is the rubber rolls off of these tires, and as it wears off, it actually becomes little balls, and it goes up where you don't keep them kind of pushed up the racetrack. It goes up, and it's about 2 car widths up. And once you get on that loose rubber, it's like just running on top of gravel. Your tires don't make contact with the pavement anymore. They're riding on these little bits of rubber, and it's just like being on ice. It just skates right out the wall.
We're riding with Sam Hornish, presently back there in the 13th position. Only 14 cars are on the lead lap right now. Roger Yasukawa is back in the 14th position. Foyt is 15th a lap off, and it's Buell, Takagi, Sharp, Schechter has now lost 2 laps, and Fisher is 3 laps off the pace. Buddy Lazier is 4 laps off the pace, and Vitor Miri, you just heard from him, is out of the race.
Well, we're going to find out about right now if Sam Hornish is really going to be fast enough to come back through these guys.
He has Al Unser right in front of him.
Right, and Al Unser Jr. has been running extremely well. He cut his way from the back of the pack to the front. So
the only reason he's back there right now is because of that pit stop to change the front wing.
Well, yeah, he was involved with the crash with Schechter and had to replace that front wing. So he's trying to work his way back up through the same as he did the first 20 laps of the race.
Right now, Dixon again enjoying second plus lead. Going for a 3rd win of the year. He won 2 weeks ago at Pikes Peak. He won the opener at Homestead back in March. You see the 2 Penske cars right there running nose to tail in second position, but they're almost a second and a half behind the leader.
Those guys both running very well. Castroneves, he's the guy who got upside down here earlier in the year. Car caught on fire during a practice session. He ran over Tony
about a month ago.
Yeah, just about a month ago. He said it was the scariest crash he's ever been in his life. He said because the thing went upside down, it's on fire, he could feel all the fire. The firemen were there immediately. They put the fire out. He was out. He wasn't hurt. He bruised his tailbone. He has a little trouble sitting down, but says that's getting a lot better as time goes on. But it really, he said it was absolutely the scariest thing he's gone through in motorsports.
Right now, these Penske cars may be content to do as you were talking about earlier. At this juncture in the race, you're up there in second and third position. Don't overextend yourself. Don't overextend the cars. Now watch this wiggle right here with Sam. Look at this.
That was a big
save. Oh, there's the big save right there.
That was the 2 big saves, and that was earlier in the race when he got on the outside, very early in the race. And I'm going to say this very plainly. I think 80% of the guys on that racetrack would have been in the wall if that had happened to him. He is.
That might be generous. It may have been more like 90%.
Yeah, he is extremely good. We've seen him do that a couple of different times at a couple of different racetracks. And I just don't think there's anybody in this business that's better than he is at saving a car when it gets out from under you like that.
Well, he also drives a car on some racetracks that nobody else will get up there in that area. He has his own groove that is as close to the marbles as anybody wants to run.
Well, he's certainly not afraid of the race car or the racetrack. Let's put it that way.
Well, once again, Dixon enjoying a 1.5-second lead over DeFerrin and Castroneves. Canan is back there in 4th. Ray is 5th, then Weldon, then Giafoni, Rice, Herta, Breck. Jacques Lazier is back in 11th position for A.J. Foyt. Unser is 12th. Hornish with that wiggle lost his position to Yasukawa, so he's back in 14th spot. Now you're riding up in front. Scott Dixon continues to lead after 97 circuits.
Do a very good job. He would have known that he had both of those guys running their nose to tail, and he would have given both of them.
When you're 5 laps off the lead, despite the fact having won this thing 2 years ago, you're not in contention today. Get the heck out of the way.
Well, I'm sure that's what Castroneves, and I imagine that Castroneves' spotter has gone down and told Buddy Lazier's spotter the same thing.
There's Brian Herta Herta has picked up this ride as we documented earlier for the season because of the injury, the back injury to Dario Franchitti. So Herta now in the 9th position. First time he's been at this racetrack.
And Herta's a little concerned about fatigue here tonight. He hasn't run a lot this year. He hasn't had a full-time ride. He, you know, he works out. He does all the things that guys do. But there's no replacement for being in the race car. That's the absolute best way to stay in shape. And without having raced a lot this year, especially on this little short track on this very hot night, he was afraid he might be fatigued by the time this race was over.
We have a phenomenal crowd here this evening, Larry. They actually opened up about 20 minutes before the race began a new grandstand to accommodate all the walk-up traffic that they've received this afternoon, late this afternoon or this evening.
Yeah, historically they just open about half of the grandstands here. It's a huge facility for a 3/4 mile.
100,000 plus.
But this is the biggest crowd they've ever had here at Richmond. They're very pleased with. They've grown every year that they've had the IRL event here at Richmond.
And this basically is NASCAR stock car country.
Exactly, exactly. So they're quite happy with the way things have gone.
Let's look at Greg Ray. Greg continues to ride back in 5th position, and I think very contented to ride back there. As you talked about before, with good qualifying, he can run there for another 100 laps before he gets real racing.
Well, I think, you know, he's been on top of the heap here in the IRL. But the last couple of years, he's been at the bottom of the heap. So I think he very desperately wants to just be hanging around at the end of the race, be in the top 5, maybe get a podium finish. I think that would be a great result for this team. That's very young, very new, and very underfunded compared to some of these other guys.
Not only putting a car together, they're really trying to learn each other.
Right.
It's a whole new ball game for these people, despite the fact that Greg, as you said, has been on top. He's been an Indy Racing League champion. He's just now trying to find out what the other teammates are like. Sam Hornish is running at the back of the lead pack. He is the last driver on the lead lap in 12th position.
And that's Scott Dixon coming up behind him, about to getting ready to lap him. I think that accident that he had in the pit area has obviously affected the handling of that race car. It's not handling nearly as well as it did before. He's been behind Tora Takagi and Alan Jr. ever since that last yellow. Hasn't been able to get around them. So.
Well, Takagi is out there in front of Unser, but actually Tora is a lap off the pace. Tora now back in the 17th position as you look off the back of the Pennzoil car back down the straightaway to your leaders, Scott Dixon, Gilles DeFerrin, and Elio Castroneves as they work on lap 121. Sam Hornish makes the pass on the inside of Little Al and picks up a position.
Little Al, once he had to get out of the throttle, let Sam go. He lost a lot of track position there. And he's going to be the next guy to be lapped as Scott Dixon is right behind him.
And Hornish will be up on the rear of Kenny Breck and then Brian Herta.
Sarah Fisher's still having her problems. She's back there and not really in contention.
Now Sarah right now is 4 laps off the pace, back in 20th position. They never got that car right after she crashed in practice after qualifying yesterday.
No, they certainly didn't. Now then,
look at this.
Sam Hornish, all of a sudden, when he figured he was going to get a lap, he's really getting.
Just picked up another position as he goes by. Well, that was Takagi. That was Takagi. Yeah. I thought that was correct. That was Takagi. He's still a couple laps off the pace.
But at least he's picked up the pace, trying desperately to stay on the lead lap.
Well, Hornish had last lap ran a 1:47.8. And the leader ran a 1:48.4, so he's still not quite as fast as the leader. Now he's pulled up behind Robbie Buell, the number 24 car. That's Sarah's teammate. Buell will stay up and let him go on by.
And before his crash, he was running laps at 1:51 and 1:52, so it's obviously slowed him down since that crash in the pit area.
And you see the 2 Penske cars. They still run almost 2 seconds behind Dixon. Back in 2nd and 3rd, Kanaan is still 4th. It's Ray, Weldon, Giafone, Rice, Herta, Breck, and Hornish. Hornish down 11th position. Al Unser is in 12th. Al Unser now has been lapped.
Well, actually, right now, it looks like Al just got back around.
Al has gotten his lap back. You ride with the leader on lap 128 here at Richmond. Live coverage. And he pulled up behind Al Unser Jr. He'd gotten by Unser. Then Unser got the lap back.
Unser desperately trying to stay on the lead lap. Of course, Scott Dixon doesn't want to get in there and mix it up too much with these guys because he doesn't want to end up getting in a crash and doing something
Yeah, but
silly.
here comes the Penske cars right behind him.
Right.
He's up behind Tora Takagi.
Well, that's kind of the risk that you take. Do you go up there and you really battle with these guys? Uh-oh, we got somebody on the inside crashing.
Somebody in the inside. It looked like a green and white car. It looks like it could be Foyt. And that will be the second yellow of the evening. And our second crash of the evening.
Both of them.
Lap 130.
Both crashes happening off of turn number 2. And there's A.J. Foyt sitting there trying to figure out what's going on. Probably talking to his grandson.
The safety crew is there. Look at the lighting. The lighting here is just incredible.
And you can see all of those crew members down there. They were hiding behind the wall just in case anything happened. And here's Foyt coming off. He just pinched the car a little bit coming off there.
By himself.
By himself. He just pinched the car and it slammed down into that inside guardrail. Everybody,
and all those guys slammed down as well.
They all went for the basement. They got down behind that wall, so if anything were to fly over it, they weren't going to get hit with it.
Here comes Dr. Bach. He is the medical director. AJ still on the scoring stand. Still has the headset on.
Yeah, he's not a very happy guy right now.
That is Ann Finoro next to him, who is the PR for the race team. Our second yellow of the race. And possibly the last yellow, or the last pit stop. The last
well,
pit
it could
stop.
be. If they'll, it's going to be kind of an interesting thing. If they'll all come in this time, they'll all make their pit stops. Then there'll be, you know, 100 laps to go, a little over 100 laps to go. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody, if there is another yellow, opts to come stay out on the racetrack rather than make that final pit stop. I don't think you will, but who knows? It's going to be interesting to see how many yellows will happen.
Well, also keep in mind, Larry, we talked about the tires not going over, 100 laps. Okay, the question is, on a really large racetrack, those tires could have more of an effect than on this track here because you have so much traffic that it takes away from what you might get with fresh tires. Because you've got so much traffic to go through. A big racetrack, a big wide racetrack, you put the new tires on, maybe you are that much faster.
Well, but here it still makes a difference because the way you get through the traffic depends on how good your tires are too. So it all matters, and you've got to have a good set of tires. You can only get 7 sets of tires per car for this entire weekend. They've already used up probably 3 sets coming into this race.
Well, wholesale pit stop. Let's see who stays on the track. Let's see who comes in for the pit stop. There is your leader. Dixon has led through this entire race.
And he beat him back out that time. There's our Penske cars. They come out second, third. Here comes Kanaan. He's going to be fourth. But Scott Dixon's crew got him in and out and maintained that lead.
And so Scott, very, very uncharacteristic that somebody can maintain the lead through 2 pit stops.
Incredible stat there. So Scott Dixon, not only did he set his first pole position in IRL, but he's led all the way through this particular race. That's
doing a good job, isn't
phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what interested me was that his win in kart was at Nazareth, which is another short track, and I thought he was going to be a good number today, and he's proving just that.
Well, if he carries on the way he's going, he'll be a 3-time winner this year so far. He's already won 2, the only guy to have won 2 races, of course, this year in IRL. Let's take a look now at A.J. Foyt, who managed to find himself up against the wall, and see if we can spot anything from this, because we didn't have much of a chance to look at it before. He just looked like he did that all on his own. But watch the guys behind pit wall now, as they all, as the commentator said, head for the basement. There were about 20 people stood along that wall, and they all dived for the tarmac. So A.J. Foyt, the 4th, finds himself reversed. Did you spot anything in that, Paul, that could help us with why he might have done that?
Fortunately, he's sponsored by an insurance company. But other than that, it does look like he just had to get out of the throttle a little bit early. There was a lot of movement around him, and I just think, unfortunately, poor guy's just not got experience.
Okay, let's talk strategy now, because we've, I mean, Captain Roger Penske as usual. He's got two guys, second and third. What can he do to get on terms with Chip Ganassi's team?
He's going to have to come with something pretty special, because 2 pit stops and he's still leading, and you know, we're 135 laps in the record book. He's going to have to crack it some clever way.
Okay, Dan Weldon, 6th place at the moment, having a good drive, Dan. He qualified in 11th place. We spoke about him a little bit earlier. I mean, that's a good solid drive for the youngster, isn't it?
Yeah, it is absolutely. We were talking about it before, and Paul was just saying that Michael's lent on him and said, "Don't be a hero too soon." And probably by taking it a bit easier, he's getting there.
It's a great word you use there, hero, because this particular racetrack is definitely a hero's racetrack. And at the moment, the hero of the week has got to go to Sam Hornish. I mean, what he hasn't gotten away with today, I've never seen anything like it. He saved that car several times from going in the wall, and at one point even brushed the wall for a fair distance. I mean, surely his car can't take much more of that, Paul.
Well, I think he needs to change his name firstly to David Seaman, obviously, because the saves have been spectacular. And I suspect strongly that parts of the car are made by Hummer. It's just incredible. He's had a pit lane crash, he's brushed the wall, he's travelling around, overtaking people and just getting on with the job. I mean, the guy's really a star.
Well, we're going to get on with the job now. We're going to go and take a break, but we'll be back with Sam Hornish and the rest of them from Richmond in just a couple of minutes. He has done throughout the SunTrust Indy Challenge, and I'll pause there for a second to hear some of the talk back between the driver and of course pit lane. And I can tell you some of the lights have gone out around the track at the moment. We have dark patches here at Richmond, and that is a major problem for the drivers. Looking to see exactly what the problems are at trackside. This is our second yellow, and it was brought on us by AJ Foyt IV, who hit the wall out of turn 2. And there are the lights, some of the floodlights. We've got 1 or 2 pointing in certain directions, but well, at 170 odd miles an hour, around a 7/10 of a mile racetrack, at something like getting on for 170 miles an hour, you want all the light you can possibly get, and probably a lot else as well. Remarkable scenes then from trackside. You join us back here. If you've stayed up to watch the SunTrust Indy, then thank you very much. You're very much welcome here. Paul Cherry and John Kirkpatrick are our guests tonight. Paul, we've seen some drama out and around that track. I have to say, not as many yellows as I was expecting considering the circumstances, but lights out on this track. What are we going to do with that, do you think?
Find an electrician, hopefully.
Ask a stupid question, Ewan, and you will get an answer like that, I suppose.
The problem is that they are all angled to literally fill all the gaps, and any go out, then there are dark spots, and it's just like if you turn the headlights off on your car. Trouble is you're doing 170 mile an hour here, so any variance, especially with your visor down, it's going to make a big difference.
Well, it won't make any difference, of course, to Sam Hornish, because the force is with him. The way he's driving at the moment, he definitely has some kind of... He has someone in there with him. Look, he's just lost it already, which would have had anybody in the wall, and then he lost it again and then touched the wall. I've never seen this man... I mean, he is brave beyond all belief at any kind of given track, but at the moment, he definitely has some inspired help.
I think we've had this conversation so many times when I've been in the studio. He has to rescue it at least once every race, but tonight he's working overtime.
He's obviously welcome back, John, because he's excelled himself. You've not been here for a year, and I'm sure I haven't seen Sam Hornish Jr. quite as hectic as he is tonight.
But even Sam does need the lights to see where the wall is, so that's you know.
Well, I can tell you, I'm hearing from trackside at the moment that some drivers are radioing back, and I tried to pick that up a moment ago when we came back on air after the break. Some drivers are radioing back to their spotters to say it's too dark to race. These are live pictures. It's a bit like the M25 at the moment, doesn't it? Lots of orange flashing lights and most of it unlit.
What's quite interesting, Keith, is this is direct lighting. If you go to take tracks like Charlotte and Atlanta, it's reflected light, and it gives a much more realistic daytime sort of light than these specifically aimed spotlights. So, as you say, when some go out, you're really in trouble.
Well, you've probably heard it all before from television people, of course. Our cameras do actually rack quite neatly, so we can see much clearer than you would be able to see if you were actually at trackside. Let's cross back then to our live commentators for the rest of the SunTrust Indy Challenge.
Well, it looks like some of the lights in the backstretch may be coming back on. There's one right there, Larry.
Yeah, that's one that's coming back on. There are 4 right in a row, right in this area, right here, that are off. And those 4 are what's causing the major problem. And 1 or 2, I think, that are out in the corners, down there in corner number 1 and 2, on the outside of the racetrack. I don't think they're as big a problem as those on the back straight.
Right now, this has been a 17-lap, 18-lap yellow. We're hearing from timing and scoring and race control. We will go back to racing. This has been a lengthy yellow, which may make the question about another pit stop for tire wear a moot subject.
Yeah, it may be. If they have an opportune yellow, they will probably all go in. But you'll probably see 1 or 2 guys stay out there and try to just sneak up with a better finish if they don't go in. So it'll be a very interesting strategy.
I've covered most of these Indy Racing League events since 1996. I don't recall we had a driver lead every lap and win a race.
No, I don't believe we've ever had that happen. I agree with you. It's been one of the most competitive series I've ever covered. And they've always had guys passing each other, but Scott Dixon's been pretty dominant here tonight.
Well, he has led every lap, and we're on lap 150 right now here at Richmond. You talk about the domination factor. In fact, Thomas Scheckter and his teammate Scott Dixon, coming into today's race, had led over 40% of all the laps. They led 496 laps. Dixon led 236, Scheckter 260, and now he has led every lap today.
So that means that they led at least 50% of the laps, I would think, of all the laps that the Indy Racing League has run. So that's a pretty good track average for a team.
And Dixon's going for his 3rd win and 2 in a row. He won 2 weeks ago at Pikes Peak, and of course we'll have just a week before we're back with you live from Kansas. A week from tomorrow on Sunday.
Yeah.
The lights are coming back on, Larry. Yeah, so we're in a position to get back to green flag racing.
Yeah, they're saying that the whatever happened to the lights, they've got them kicked back on. The lights that they have here, it takes them a few minutes to get back up to full song. It takes them a little while to get back up to the original brightness, but they should be back up pretty shortly.
You're right along with Scott Dixon. So yes, Castroneves and Farron and Kanan behind him for this restart. Live coverage from Richmond International, where we should be going green. Larry Rice in a couple of laps. The lights are coming back on, and so no more darkness on the backstretch. And we can go back to racing. This has been a lengthy yellow. Some 21 laps under yellow, and the last about 8 have been because of the light situation.
Right. I think the light situation was the big concern. They found the problem. They've got them restarted. They'll be back full song here before long, and we'll go back to green flag racing. I still think there's a couple of lights down in turn 1 and 2, but they're not a big problem. Back straightaway lights are the big one.
Race control saying 2 more laps before we go back to racing.
Now you just saw him, you followed him clear down the front straightaway. The lights were good there.
See, they're coming up on the backstretch now.
Yeah. Now see, that dark spot down there is gone. So they've got those going again on the back straightaway, so that's good news.
I want to hear from A.J. Foyt about that crash that brought out the yellow back on lap 130.
Unfortunately, we've
lost the audio down there. Hey, AJ got the right hat on there for the interview. He got a sponsor, Conseco, taken care of, but we had some audio problems and couldn't hear from.
Well, yes, I believe it is.
All right.
AJ, are you okay, and what happened?
Yeah, I'm fine. Just I was having a lot of fun out there and felt really comfortable, and just about about 5 laps before that happened, I radioed into the crew that the car started getting a little bit loose on me, and some cars checked on going in turn 2 behind a slower car, and I saw a chance to get by a car and kind of got on the gas a little bit too early and a little bit too quick, and it just broke loose on me.
Learning experience this season for young 19-year-old AJ. Coming back to green.
Look at the Farron. He's trying to get underneath Castroneves.
Spin. There's a spin right there on the restart, and that is Greg Ray.
Boy,
Greg Ray, what a tough break, because what a great ride he's had this evening.
Yeah, and we've talked about how easy it is. This is one of the few tracks where the throttle control is all up to the driver. You get on it too hard, you can spin that thing in a short second.
We have this on video replay here, Larry, to show you what happened. So the green started to come out, then the yellow went right back out.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of the tires being a little cold, picking up the throttle too quickly, and he just he got on the throttle. Once he got that thing turned around,
good job of driving.
Yes,
good job of driving.
He got it turned around. He got off of the brakes and let it go straight backwards.
Now he's off the brakes. Now he starts coming around, so he gets back on the brakes, spins it. Nice job of driving.
Yeah, he kept that out of everybody. You know, it's been real easy to slide right back up in front of him.
Now you're on board with him.
Yep. You heard it break loose.
Nice job of driving.
You heard it break loose. I mean, he just, the rear wheels just broke loose, that's all. And once he turned that thing around, the really nice thing was he kept it going straight down the racetrack, just sliding up in front of all the guys. Now then, everybody's coming in for another pit stop.
Well, everybody.
Not everybody. The guys in the back of the pack.
Oh, look at this. There's that mark from Sarah Fisher early in the race, the donut right there on the trim. There's Thomas Schechter in. Yeah, those at the back of the pack have all made a pit stop, which would probably be their final pit stop. There's the pace car. They want to get back out, so they'll be on the lead lap. Now we're going to get the furrow flight to indicate one more lap.
Now what they did is they came in and made that pit stop. They're going to go to the end. If everybody else stops, they're going to go ahead and go and try to gain back those laps that they lost. Every one of those guys were at least a lap down. They're going to try to get back on the lead lap by staying out if there's another yellow.
They lost another 4 laps on the yellow because of that half spin by Greg Ray. Scott Dixon brings them around with a restart as they complete lap 159.
Wow, he got a great jump that time. No chance for either one of the Penske cars to make any kind of a move on him. He's a quick learner. He didn't give them any kind of an opportunity that time.
Going for his 3rd win of the year. You're right along with Hornish on the inside of Weldon. Ooh. And that was a battle for 6th position.
And you can see when he got out of the throttle, it cost him a spot. Yep. Just no horsepower.
Breck by.
Kenny Brack went by. No horsepower there once you have to get out of the throttle, so he lost position.
I understand that Herta, number 27, has brushed the wall, but the green remains out. Back on board with Sam Hornish. That's Kenny Brack out in front of him. Hornish rides back there in 8th position.
Hornish not nearly as quick after that pit accident as he was before. He was extremely quick up to that point, but he's got back around Breck. That's Dan Weldon in front of him.
Yes, it is.
So
he's back up to 7th. Weldon's in 6th. And that team has to be asking, what if, what if, what if? What if we didn't run out of fuel 2 weeks ago? What if we didn't have this pit altercation?
He's right on Weldon, but he's not running a lot faster than Weldon. That's the big thing. At this racetrack, you've got to be a mile an hour or so quicker than the guy in front of you in order to make the pass. And he's just not right now.
This haul is going on about 5 seconds behind the leaders, so they're still not out of it.
No, they're not out of it. But the leaders with new tires, they're running 155, 156 mile an hour now, which we saw quite a drop off. They were running back in the low 140s, 144, 145, so they gained about 10 miles an hour with new tires.
Hornish is now 154. Working on lap 167. Once again, the 22-year-old from New Zealand has led every lap. Scott Dixon, who's second in the point standings, the 2-time winner this season, qualified for the pole yesterday at 168.1 miles an hour, and he has led every lap.
Sam Hornish has got a little wide there. He got real wide there coming off of turn number 4. Almost got up into the fence coming off of 4, but he always runs a little wider than anybody else.
He doesn't give himself a whole lot of room.
No, he doesn't.
No margin for error. Look at him work on that wheel.
Yeah,
we talked early in the broadcast that they really work the wheel more here than other racetracks, which is inherent with this short track.
And that's why this is such a physical racetrack. The driver is working a lot harder. There's no just put your foot down and drive it. You're using the brakes, you're using the throttle, you're using everything.
Giafone there, Larry. Look at Giafone up behind Kanaan.
Kanaan not having one of his better nights, quite honestly. Even though he's still fast, he's been up in the top 4. You know, he hasn't really been a factor as far as leading this race, which he has been in almost every race this year.
Also, we're hearing that it will be very close for Tony to make it without a stop. But keep in mind, they're in a position right now, they're not going for a win, they're going for a championship. And 4th place points is much better than overdriving that race car and crashing out.
Well, and that's exactly right. He knows that. He's a very smart guy, so he knows that as long as he's running up in that part of the race, up in the top 4 or 5, he doesn't really have to win this race unless the race car is perfect.
Well, he has somebody calling the shots in the pit area named Michael Andretti, one of the team owners. So driving a smart race here back in 4th position. Just under 80 laps to go. And there's Hornish again to the inside. He may have him this time, and he does. Goes by Weldon for position.
Wow.
So Hornish is up to 6th.
Wow, it's a good thing the spotters were on the ball there. Dan Weldon would have been real easy for him not to have given him room, but the spotters were on the top of things. Hornish dived down underneath him, and Weldon gave him room. Kenny Brack also went around.
Look at this. Look at this. He's pulling up now on Giafone.
Yeah, he is. Giafone and Kanaan are the next 2 victims. As we said, he languished back there in 15th spot or 12th spot for a long time. But boy, since this last pit stop, he must have got a good set of tires.
Just ran 153.2 miles an hour. That was the 2nd fastest lap that last circuit. And look at this. Look at him pull in on those 2 guys, Kanaan and Giafone. So that's 4th and 5th right in front of him.
And this is exactly like it was at Pikes Peak. It's the corner speed where he's making everything up. He's right through the very center of the corner. He is the fastest car on the racetrack without a doubt. Look at that. Look at that. 1 or 2 car lanes.
And you have to wonder, Larry, what this team might lose when they lose Kevin Blanche.
You just don't know. That's the unknown right now. Look at that, how quick he is through 3 and 4.
Well, if he just had some horsepower, he'd be challenging for his 3rd straight title, wouldn't he?
Yes, he would.
Look at this. On the high side, keeps the momentum up. You saw Giafone wiggle just a bit, wiggles again.
Well, there's a big bump going into 3. You can see him. He hit a big bump going in there into turn number 3.
This is the battle for 5th position. Once again, he tries the high side, tries to keep the momentum up down the back stretch into turn 3. Live coverage of the Richmond Indy 250 from Richmond, Virginia. And this is the battle for make that 5th position. You're riding in 6th spot with Sam Hornish. And that's Giafone right in front of him, and right in front of Giafone is Tony Kanaan.
You can listen to the rev limiter right here.
Right there.
He is all over that rev limiter. He's working. Oh, look at this. Is Giafone going to give him room? Oh, he did, but barely.
Not much. Look at this.
Man, oh,
and this is not a high bank track like we see at Texas. This is only about 14 degrees.
Look at this. What a great job of driving by both of those guys.
He made it. He made it on the high side.
Sam Hornish, you just don't see that on a short track like this very often. Giafone did a great job giving him enough room, but boy, that's a difficult pass on a place like Richmond, Virginia. Whew.
Well, I said early on in this broadcast that Sam Hornish is worth the price of admission.
Well, now then, Tony Kanaan is the next victim. Let's see if Kanaan, he's hardly had any trouble at all. He just pulled to the outside of Kanaan, and looks like, as you said, Kanaan maybe says, hey, I don't want to crash with this guy. I'm going to let him go.
I'm going for a championship.
I'm going for a championship. I'd rather run
Larry, that's maturity. That's maturity to not overdrive that race car, to know what the overall goal is, not just tonight, but over the course of the season.
Well, and see, Sam Hornish doesn't have to win a championship because he's not going to win a championship.
He's already won 2 of them.
And he knows this might be his last hurrah here with this Chevrolet engine, so he's going to go for it, and he did.
Yeah, as you look at the rest of the season, it really does not look good for the under-horsepowered Chevrolets.
Well, most of them are big 1.5-mile tracks where you're flat to the floor, and you know, without horsepower, you're just not going to do well there. You've got a handle, but you've got to have the horsepower as well.
Well, there are some lap cars between Sam Hornish in 4th and Gilles de Ferran in 3rd. Some 3 seconds between those 2 positions. On lap 65, when Hornish brushed the wall, he was back in the 14th position.
Yeah, when he got in that crash in the pit area, he was way in back. He was the last car on the lead lap, and he
almost got lapped.
Yeah, he almost got lapped there at one point. But after this last pit stop, after he put on this new set of tires, they must just missed the setup a little bit during that last segment. And I think he's probably the one guy that's hoping that this race does go to the end right now. Even though the Chevrolets, I don't know, with the Chevrolet engine, they don't get as good a fuel mileage, he may not be able to make it to the end. Who knows? A lot of ifs at this point in this race.
The only crew that's showing their hand right now is Tony Kanaan. The Andretti Green team said, yeah, we're not sure we can make it to the end. Now, on the other hand, he might like to have a short yellow for debris to close up behind the leaders.
Could be.
Now we're also hearing from race control some possible moisture. Big wiggle in turn 2 for car 10. That was Schechter. Look at him sliced in traffic.
And he's just going inside, outside.
Just poetry in motion out
wherever they happen to be, he goes where they're not and just keeps the throttle down and goes right on around them. And he is gaining on de Ferran right now.
Hit that rev limiter again. On lap 191, still some 58 laps to go.
Yeah, and,
a lot can happen in 58 laps. The question right now that has yet to be answered: will the front runners have to make another fuel stop?
Well, if it goes green the rest of the way, for some of the front runners, it's going to be pretty close.
There's first. There's second.
De Ferran is falling off.
Third.
Yeah, De Ferran's falling about a half a straightaway behind.
And there's 4th.
So he's about a straightaway, a little more than a straightaway behind our leader right now.
The last lap, Hornish was the 2nd fastest driver on the track. Only Scott Dixon ran a faster lap, and Scott's enjoying right now a 4-second lead as Giafone has gotten around de Ferran. So Giafone rides in 2nd position.
Well, we are now under our 4th yellow, and this is the reason why the sun went down over Richmond some time ago, and now the rain has come. You may have heard Sam Hornish Jr. in his Chevrolet motored vehicle absolutely on the rev limiter. That's usually a sign of there's a bit of moisture in the air. The motor is driving that little bit harder, and now we have a situation where it's raining. Still with me here in the studio, and thank you for staying with us, gentlemen, Paul Cherry and John Kilpatrick. What's the situation now, Paul? They're raining. We're under our 4th yellow. They don't race ovals in the wet, do they?
No, it's a little bit tortuous, so I think...
hold on just 1 second, if you would. Let's hear what they've got to say at trackside.
We're losing it, unfortunately, for all 3 cars, actually.
Dan Weldon, similar problems. He's had such tough luck the last 3 races. How important for a rookie to be able to complete this one and maybe boost that confidence?
Well, I think big, and I think he's been doing a great job. He's been running right up in the top 6 or 7 the whole day, and so he's been doing a really good job. And it's unfortunate that Brian had his problem, because I think he would have been right up there. But he tried a big move to go around the outside of 3 abreast, but unfortunately didn't make it.
Are you getting adapted to this business?
Michael Andretti being cut off in his prime there. Maybe there's a bit of water got in the works. Now then, Paul, sorry very much for cutting across you there, but we needed to hear what Michael had to say, of course, at trackside. Rain, yellow flag. They don't race in the rain on an oval, that's for sure. So what's the scenario from this point?
Well, at this moment, don't forget that the track is still very, very hot. It's been boiling all day there. the water's coming down, it'll probably vapor off very, very quickly. So they'll keep the cars out for as long as they possibly can, just to try and keep the track line dry, and then they'll put the burners out afterwards. Now, if they can't do that, they'll obviously red flag it, and then the race director will make a decision whether or not to restart the race.
I've got to say, John, you've been away from us here in the Sky Sports studio for 12 months, but you certainly picked one to come back, didn't you?
It's been you know, it's such a shame the rain came because it was getting really exciting.
Well, Sam Hornish, I have to say, he gets the Bravery of the Year award for me. I mean, we did used to see him when he was coming up. He's a two-time IRL champion. He's the defending champion at the moment. But I don't think I've even seen Sam, and I've been watching him since God knows when now, drive quite like he is. It's inspired. He's under them, he's over them, he's round the outside of them. It is a wonderful drive.
He just doesn't accept no for an answer. He's always on it, and he's...
And that's in a car that's been bashed about.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been in the wall.
It's had 2 knocks. and the pit knock was a hard one.
Well, let's take a look at this, how close he is prepared to actually run in this vehicle. He's on the rev limiter. I said that a little bit earlier, but Paul, talk us through this, please.
Well, what can you say? The guy is taking any and every opportunity to get past people. As we've said all along, you know, he's underpowered. Now he is on the rev limiter, so he's losing 2, maybe even 3 miles an hour on each of those straights. So any gap, and he's past you.
Well, these are 16-second laps, I remind everybody at home. It's a 7/10, to be precise, of a mile lap around this Richmond International Raceway. Now then, these are live pictures. We can see what kind of condition the track is in. We've had trouble with the track lighting, remember? That went out and we had sort of 8 laps under a yellow flag because the track lights went out a little bit earlier on. So we've had all kinds of things happen to us here at Richmond. That is your order as it is at the moment. Scott Dixon has never been headed. He was the pole man. He's led every single lap of this race. Helio Castroneves and Gil de Ferran swapped places just a little bit earlier on. And the Penske team don't seem to be able to get on, and we're just looking to see if there's any rain still splashing on our camera.
If you look at the front tyres of Sam's car here, once the board goes away here, you'll see that they look very shiny, which is a sure sign that he is now starting to pick up water.
Indeed, we can see that. We have to wait until the lights are actually on, don't we, really?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the track now, you've got a reasonable...
Great shame, because Sam Hornish, I certainly would have thought, I would have fancied him to have caught Gil de Ferran in 3rd place, because de Ferran, I think, was just beginning to slow a little bit.
Begun to drop off the pace a bit, and he was not that far behind at all.
Well, these are live pictures. We are under our 4th yellow of the day. Vita Mera was the man that managed to catch us out right up front. Then it was AJ Foyt. Then it was Greg Ray. Now it's the rain. Let's go back to trackside and see if we have any news at all from our live trackside commentators.
Oh, Larry, now race control is saying the checkered flag will come out the next time by, and they will complete. There's the red flag and the checkered flag together. So they're going to end this race after 206 circuits. And there is the checkered flag. Brian Howard has the checkered flag, the red flag together, and that means that Scott Dixon has won his 3rd event of the season, and the first time in the history of this division a guy has led every lap of the race. We are back live. The checkered flag has just come out with the red flag, Larry.
Yes, checkered and red together. Here's Kevin Blanche.
Does it look like you were coming, and did you think you had a chance to pull it out and win it?
Yeah, we had a good car there at the end. You know, the Pennzoil car, we got in a little accident there in the pit lane early in the race, and I think it took him that next stint to get it figured out, and it knocked the toe out quite a bit. But after that, he got the car handling pretty good, and we seem to be better on longer runs, so we needed a 50, 60 lap run. I think we might have had something for him.
Aside from that incident in the pits, you would have been right up there all the way, but this is 2 races in a row where this team has really stepped up. How big of a confidence boost?
Oh, it's great. You know, I mean, we crashed the car last night and had to work all day putting it back together. And that just shows you the quality of the guys on the team. You know, this car, we basically completely rebuilt this car, changed everything but the tub, underwing, and a side pod, and just went out and done a 250 lap leak check on her, and she come through pretty good.
Indeed, she...
I would say she came through pretty good. That's
I guess so. I'm not sure Scott knows where victory lane is.
A 250 lap leak check, huh?
Well, it didn't go quite 250 laps, 206 laps.
Yeah.
And there's Hornish right there, pulls up behind the number 6, de Ferran. So Dixon, Castroneves, de Ferran, Hornish, Kanaan.
And Giafone and Brack Weldon, Rice, and Unser. I'm not sure why he pulled way back here in the garage area instead of stopping out front, but that's where he's ended up. Looks like everybody's caught up with him, but
maybe he wasn't sure that, well, the checkered flag came out. He had to see the checkered flag.
Checkered and red came out together, so he had to know that the race was over. Maybe he was trying to find victory lane, like you said.
He was trying to find some place dry.
That could be true, too.
Pull it back to the garage area.
You can see
second race in a row that he's won.
Well, he's a very talented young guy. There's no question about that.
Very mature.
Very mature. He and look, you can see there's a lot of rain on those visors. I think they did the right thing as Jack Arut's caught up with
on the right side of the car all the time, isn't it, Scott?
No, definitely not. Why did that?
A little bit of gear here to get out. Well, it didn't rain on your parade tonight. Congratulations.
No, definitely not. The guys did a great job. We just saved fuel the whole race, and hey, it came off. Unfortunately, it rained, but I think we had a very good car. Helio at the end there was starting to come close, so you know we had a bit of pressure, but the guys just did an awesome job.
Scott, when you arrived here for a test session, the first ever, you pulled up into this area and you thought the racetrack was what?
A go-kart track.
You don't think that anymore, do you?
No, definitely not. It's been a lot of fun, you know, with the traffic out there. It's an awesome place to race.
Target Team Ganassi victorious one more time. First a victory early in the season at Homestead, now a victory in Colorado, and now here at Richmond.
Indeed, he's won 3 times this year over Castro Neves tonight. Jill DeFerrin, Sam Hornish, Tony Kanaan, and Felipe Giaffonis. Take a look at the second 6. Brack, Weldon, Rice, Unser Jr., Yasukawa, Greg Ray in the 12th position. Then it was Takagi, Herta, Buell, Lazier, Jacques, Sharp, Schechter languished near the back after that altercation earlier. It was Sarah Fisher, Buddy Lazier, A.J. Foyt, and Vitor Mira. So the rain halted early, but the victory goes to Scott Dixon. Well, Larry, in the record book, it's going to show he led every lap, and he won this race.
Well, and
he was the class of the field.
He was the class of the field. There's no question about it. He did lead every lap. He led it quite convincingly. There was only maybe one time on one of the restarts that he had any kind of challenge at all. The rest of the time, he was just the man. I mean, he was on top of it. The car was fast. He never looked like he was going to give up the lead at any point during the race.
Well, and as we said before, that has never happened in the history of this league that dates back to 1996, that a driver has led every lap, because generally speaking, they're going to lose the lead sometime during a pit stop.
Yeah, almost always that happens. Somebody will stay on the racetrack, but the pit stops fell right, and everybody made the pit stop at the same time and kept the lead.
And a rather unusual location for Victory Lane, but he's back there.
Yeah, they're
the crew's catching up with him right now.
Everybody trying to find him. I think he kind of lost everybody when he pulled back there in the pit area. But you know, he was definitely. Sam Hornish did a terrific job. I think if it had not been for that thing in the pits, he might have been able to run second. But I'm not sure he could have beat Scott Dixon.
The rain continues to fall here at Richmond International, but not before we had 206 laps in the book. We'll interview the 2 guys that finished second and third.
What are you going to do about this guy Dixon? Because, man, he just dominated this night.
Man, he definitely did a fantastic job. My car was very good, but I think his car was just a little bit more well set up. The rain definitely came in the wrong time, but again, we're getting there. We're getting there. Don't worry. We're going to catch you guys.
Right. Jill, how about your reaction to this bull ring? It's so tight. It's so busy. Tell us quickly about your night.
Well, it was a good race for us. I mean, like Elliot was saying, Scott was real fast in it. Particularly in the first stint, I was just kind of biding my time there with him. And then, as you know, and then we had a little problem in the pit stop. We lost the position to Elliot. But at the end of the race, we were all flat out. Elliot, I, and Dixon, just almost qualifying pace it was.
All right, great job.
Well, so you hear from Castro Neves and DeFerrin as they finished second and third, but once again, nobody had a thing for Dixon. A good observation that you had, Larry, that even had Sam Hornish not had the problem in the pit area, I don't know that he had anything for Dixon there at the end.
I don't think so either. He probably got up to second, but Scott Dixon was the man.
Rain continues to fall here at Richmond, but as they said, it doesn't rain on the parade of Scott Dixon. So Chip Ganassi looking like a genius right now in picking up these two young drivers. We talk about that cloud that kind of hangs over Thomas Schechter, but Thomas has been doing his part and leading some laps as well, but tonight it was all Scott Dixon.
Yeah, Thomas Schechter's done his share of leading, but he just hasn't found victory lane yet. But boy, looks like a wise decision on the part of the people here, because they called the race and it's raining harder all the time.
Yeah, there's no way they could have continued on. They would have stopped it and sat here forever, and the fans would have gotten drenched. So,
and of course, if there's lightning in the area, you don't want those fans sitting in those grandstands anyway. So probably a good idea to get them out of there.
So the race scheduled for 250 laps, and we went 206 laps with only 3 yellows, and the third yellow was for rain.
Yeah, the rain came down pretty hard once it started. They reported moisture, a little bit of moisture, about 5 laps before it actually started raining. We thought it was moisture from one of the cars, but it turned out to be the skies opening up, and the more they opened up, you know, just kept getting worse and worse. When I saw all of the crowd getting up and leaving, I knew they thought that it was over with, and for the most part, they were right.
You don't need to be a television weatherman to know when you're feeling rain on your head. It's time to get up and head for the parking lot and head for the dry confines of your passenger car. So once again, our congratulations to Scott Dixon as Team Ganassi, the Target Chip Ganassi Racing Team, wins for the 2nd week in a row, their 3rd win overall, and a dominating performance as he led every one of the 206 laps, and that certainly will be a good springboard on to Kansas next week. This has been a presentation of ESPN in association with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Join us in 1 week from...
Well, there you go. You can see the rain still coming down around Richmond, and they shortened that race to 206 laps instead of 250 laps, as it should have actually gone for, of course. Dan Weldon eventually finishing, the young man from Emberton near Olney in Buckinghamshire here in the UK, finishing in 8th place. I'm sure he'll be disappointed in that, considering where he was running before we ended up with the wet track. Let's talk about Scott Dixon, 22 years old. Didn't really go the traditional route, certainly didn't come through the UK in his racing career, did he? Went straight to America, and he's making it work for him. No one's ever won a IRL race front to back, leading on every lap. Oh, and the other clarification I think I probably should point out, I did mention that this was his first pole position. That's if we ignore the fact that he was drafted through to pole position because of his qualifying time when we had rain in Japan, I think. That's
right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so he has started from pole before, but technically not. What about this young man then?
Indy Lights champ, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
Indy Lights champion 2000. You know, he was always looking good. Despite what Helio said there, I don't think the rain would the rain would have made any difference. You know, had it stayed dry, he was definitely on the top step of the podium, no question.
I don't think we've seen that kind of dominance. I mean, we're used to seeing Roger Penske and co get them sorted out. Panther, obviously, Panther Racing. Kevin Blanche there. We saw an interview with Kevin Blanche a little bit earlier on, but it's on the wires at the moment. After Kansas, the next round, he's actually leaving the team. I don't know whether you've got the inside track on that. You usually have your ear to the ground, Paul.
Yes, Kevin is actually leaving Panther, and also so is Andy Brown, his race engineer. And the hot tip of the week is that they're disappearing off to the taxi racing. So that's where they're going to wind up
That
next
is
year.
NASCAR for those of you that don't sit in between the bits where we're talking.
Yes, they have done a deal, as I understand, to place Sam in the Pennzoil NASCAR. And I think he just wants to have his familiar faces around him.
So Sam's going NASCAR racing, and his main men from Panther Racing are going with him, is what you're telling us?
Maybe worth £5 at William Hill.
Indeed. What will that do to the Panther Racing team?
If you think Panther have been a very successful team, they've been good at picking up people who you wouldn't ordinarily pick up. Remember, they brought Dan Weldon to the fore last year. I mean, he'd only done a handful of lights races and Atlantic races in the States. They had us put him in, said, let's do a bit of testing, let's see how the kid goes. He had a couple of races which he did very well, and immediately Andretti's picked him up. They'll find another person, no problem.
Castroneves and De Ferran, second and third, not a bad day's work for Penske,
Absolutely
but they're not
not.
used to seeing Chip Ganassi actually that dominant, are they?
Yeah, and you know, to go back to Dixon, he's been dominant all weekend long. He really did believe he could break 16 seconds on qualifying, but the track changed. There was a lot of rubber they ran just after the silver car, so that was a problem. But no, but it's still a good result nonetheless.
Well, it's 3 wins now.
know,
I mean, obviously Target Chip Ganassi now have got themselves in a position when they've had 3 wins this year so far. There's not been any other driver that's had more than 1 single win, and they're beginning to look pretty good at the top of the tree now, aren't they?
They made an interesting choice at the start of the year once they realised the direction that Penske were going in chassis. Because they have the same engine, the Toyota, they decided they would go the opposite way with the G-Force. A lot of people said at the start of the year, well, the G-Force is good for the super speedways and the 2 miles, but not so good on the short tracks. Here's the shortest track out there, and the kid just cruised around. I mean, it's a fantastic result for both G-Force and Target Chip Ganassi.
Indeed. Well, we heard that very man that was just talking about Target Chip Ganassi talking about Sam Hornish going to the taxis. That is, of course, the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. And we can hear now from the man who finished in 4th place today, Sam Hornish Jr., and he's talking at trackside.
I mean, I got waved out, and I mean, I don't know what happened. Obviously, it was something that usually doesn't happen because it's never happened before with myself and Panther Racing, and I think that it was just an unfortunate incident. 2 of us got together, and it hurt our chances of winning. But
well, he still came back in 4th, and I think the best way to put it is he said, tonight.
Well, that's Gary Gerald that was trying to get a word in edgeways there before he was cut off, and Sam Hornish, of course, the person that was giving us the full SP, cut short slightly. Now then, let's talk about what else was going on in this particular situation. Hornish was closing right in. Do you think he had any chance if this had been cut short of... we speculated that he might have got in front of De Ferran. Do you think he would have a chance of displacing the Penskes completely and getting on terms with Castroneves?
No, I don't. I think he may well have latched on to Gilles and possibly got past him. I don't think he'd have got any further. Scott was obviously in a class of his own, and Elio, as Scott said, was really tracking him down to the end of the race. So I think the situation there was he may have snuck 3rd. 4th's an exceptional result given the car. So that's the situation.
Well, let's take a look then at some of the standings after today's race meeting. Here it is, point standings after today. Tony Kanaan, 247, 220 for Scott Dixon. He closes in, but it's still Kanaan that's in charge. Helio Castroneves now clearly in front of Gilles de Ferran, well, clearly by 5 points anyway. Kenny Brack is in 5th place on 187. That is equal with Al Unser Jr. as the rain still comes down in Richmond. Scott Dixon then, well, Richmond Indy 250 as it should have been. This is the result of the confirmed results now, although it says unofficial there. Scott Dixon in 1st place, taking a well-deserved win. Dan Weldon in 8th place, and as I said earlier, possibly a little bit upset about 8th place because he was running as high as 5th at some point, even though he qualified in 11th place. Toru Takagi, big crash starting from the back row of the grid, finished 13th. Overall, at the end of the day, Thomas Scheckter, well, is down in 18th place. Sarah Fisher, who was 2nd on the grid on the front row, 19th place for the 23 car. She's not going to be too happy with that, that's for sure. Let's talk about Sarah Fisher for a moment, because Chevrolet were having a good qualifying situation here and did indeed in pole day qualify quite well up there. But the Chevys didn't show too well, did they, apart from Sam Hornish, of course.
With the exception of Sam, he just... I think he's got a Japanese engine, really. There was a couple of things that happened on the Friday qualifying. Before Sarah and Sam went out, they were actually 15th and 17th, and the track had cooled significantly because there had been a rain shower. They were out for their qualifying runs, took advantage of the moist air, got that little extra buzz, and certainly they took advantage of it. So that was their position. Sarah fell back because of what we thought. There's just not enough grunt to do it. But Hornish, as you said, 2 times champion, significant amount of data on this track. They've tested, they've raced, they've tested, they've raced. That's what it's all about. Every little tweak you need to know.
Well, he knew every little tweak, that's for sure, and every little part of the track that you shouldn't have been actually running on, judging by the look of it. Now then, every little tweak, every little bit of information. Now that we've got a Scotsman in here, maybe we can get the inside line on Dario Franchitti, because having had the MV Augusta removed from him after crashing it in Scotland, which I'm sure his team are still absolutely ecstatic about. We hear that he's having an operation on his back now and he's withdrawn from racing, although he looked okay last time out.
Yeah, I think it was one of those situations where he felt okay, and clearly the doctors said he was okay. But once you get in the race car and take the battering and bruising that you do, I think it was no more than a twinge at the end of that race. I mean, he did finish 4th, so he did a good job. But they just decided that he spoke with Terry Trammell, and they decided that any racing was likely to aggravate the situation, and it was best just to stop now, call a halt now, and get the job sorted so that he was in better shape for next year.
Okay, let's talk about aggravating the situation. You've been in as a team owner, race manager, Paul. There's a guy that's one of your top runners that reverses his motorcycle while he's out to play. I mean, they said it was mechanical problems, but MV Augusta, modern motorcycle, I doubt it very much. I would say this is a career-threatening type move when you've got an injury as well, when you're a top runner. Almost irresponsible?
No, I'd beg to differ. It's a touch of bad luck, for sure. One thing led to another. I mean, we all go out on our motorcycle, don't we, Keith?
No, we don't, actually, and I will argue on that because, being quite clear, most of the contracts that I've seen actually prohibit people from playing. If you've got a football contract, I mean, I know a lot of footballers that have got motorcycles that they play with, and they're banned from using them. And here we have a professional motor racer. I'm surprised that there wasn't anything in his contract to say that he couldn't play on a motorcycle.
Well, there may well have been. However,
that's my point.
However, Dario is a massive feature of the American racing scene. Not only is he married to a very beautiful film star, he is well known as Dario Franchitti. He's been there since '97, and he's done exceptionally well in most years. To come out now is probably actually going to do him some good. Like his last year of kart was fairly stagnant, the results were not there. He then changed to the IRL. I know he's not as comfortable as he would like to be in the IRL. He likes the ovals, but not as much as road racing. And I think the opportunity to take the time out, have this operation, recharge his batteries, will make him a better person. He'll come back a lot stronger and maybe even faster.
And we, of course, wish him well, mostly on the Indy Racing League, but also if he goes out and rides his motorcycle. There's a lot of very, very good racing motorcyclists from up north of the border, I've got to say. Now then, let's get back to today's Richmond 300, of course. First man that caused our yellow was Vita Mira. Let's have a bit of a recap on that and another look at it. He clouded the wall very, very hard here, John. He was our first yellow flag. I think we were expecting more, of course, and this happened quite late by our predictions in the race, but that was quite a hard hit when Dan Weldon took his air from underneath him. Get a look at it now.
It was, and you can see Weldon just coming inside and taking the line, which forced Mira up onto the marbles, and he just couldn't hold on to it. But it seemed to be an absolutely sensible pass on Weldon's side. I wouldn't attribute any blame to Weldon at all. Clearly there was a gap there, and he went for it.
This is one for the fans at home, of course. Sam Hornish being led out of his pit straight into the path of Felipe Giafone. I am amazed Sam Hornish's car took the stick it took today, Paul.
No, me too, I have to say. I mean, I would have thought the front suspension would have just taken a good crumple there. He did actually say after the race, or at least his team manager said after the race, that the thing did have a significant amount of toe in during the race. Now, to drive at 165, 170 mile an hour after your car's been involved in that sort of accident, and then brush the wall, and then keep doing those speeds, the guy's a major hero. I don't care what
I think it's kind of next time he comes into the pits and asks for half a turn here and half a pound here and a little tweak there, I think they're going to say, you get on your bike and go and bash the wall a bit more and put it back into shape. Absolutely. Joking aside, of course, AJ Foyt the fourth had a bit of a misdemeanor with the wall as well. And I draw your attention to the guys behind the wall who all hide somewhat quickly. AJ Foyt the fourth then completely unhurt, but found himself reversing straight into the wall there. Another one of those mistakes that anybody can make, but AJ Foyt the fourth, he's having a little bit of an unhappy time, I think, this year, John.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a pretty fundamental mistake, to be frank. He came up on the pack. Herta was obviously going quite slow, and he lifted and dropped the car. Yes, you're right. Really, why he was plucked by old AJ and out of the Infinity Series and put in here, I don't know. You know, racing is about experience, and you've got to get it someplace. And if you're short of experience when you come into that situation, then you'll make the mistakes that he's clearly making.
This series, Paul, is a young man's series now. It's coming on so well. It is now the premier IndyCar racing series in America, isn't it? I think I can safely say at this point.
It has the TV, it has the motor manufacturers, and it does have the backing for sure. And the series has gone from strength to strength on a professional standpoint. The numbers are still not quite there, but that next year I think you'll see probably anything up to 6 more cars.
It just keeps getting better and better, of course. That's it, though, from the floodlights of Richmond and the rain, I have to say. So the International Raceway is now being vacated. Congratulations to Scott Dixon, who led right from the beginning. My thanks too to John Kirkpatrick and Paul Cherry for keeping us company through the night. We'll be back next weekend for round 8 of the Indy Racing League. That's the Kansas Indy 300 from the Kansas Speedway in Kansas City. It starts at 6 p.m. on Sunday the 6th of July, and we'll be here on Sky Sports Extra to bring you all the action. In the meantime, thanks for watching. We'll leave you now with some of the best of tonight's action. Goodbye.